If you could kind of walk us through your career there and some of the highlight cases, I'd love to dig into and ask some questions as we get to them.
Yeah, man. So I think early on, I was kind of doing a little bit of fraud work in New York City, which was interesting, Wall Street stuff. I got into some undercover cameo roles, which then led later down the road some more substantial undercover roles. Fun, but what I really, and we put some people away and we did some damage. But what I really loved is digging into a good public corruption case. And one of my agents he had the best line. He said, "Give me a map of New Jersey, one dart, and you could throw it anywhere in any town that it hits. Give me 30 days, I'll make a case."
Wow.
And he was not that far off from that. In local politics, anyone who's interested, this is a public service announcement. If you're interested in going into local politics in New Jersey, don't.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't pay as much as you think it's going to pay. No pun intended there. But ultimately, I was fortunate enough to be selected to work a case against a sitting United States senator, a guy by the name of Robert Torricelli, who's the Democratic senator from New Jersey, one of the two. And if you think about the history of New Jersey's U.S. senators, you had Harrison Williams, Abscam, got set up basically probably one of the worst undercover jobs in the history. We still got him, right, back in the 80s. And here's a side to that. He was my nominating senator for my appointment to West Point.
Really?
Not proud of it, but I also got Bill Bradley, so the Knicks star. So
did he know that when you ended up prosecuting him? Did he know that he had?
Oh yeah, he knew those guys, and he and Bradley both had very good memories. Bill Bradley even better. So Bill Bradley actually nominated me, and I was at a Veterans Day parade, standing at the side with my family. He was driving by in a car, and he looked down. He said, "Jim DiOrio, Roseland, New Jersey." He knew everything.
Wow.
And the only other guy I knew that did that was General Schwarzkopf.
Yeah.
The best. Remembered everything about everything. So anyway, we got Torricelli. Here's what Torricelli is charged with initially, or here's the information we get that kind of stems the beginning of this investigation. There was a company, a armament plating company here in Sugar Land, Texas, right? And we noticed that on the elect forms, there's a shitload of donations going to Robert Torricelli, a senator from New Jersey. So somebody tells us, hey, doesn't make sense. I wonder why that's happening. First thing we do is we look at Torricelli's assignments. He's on, the weapons, or he's on the Armed Forces Committee, and we start to put it together, contracts, whatever. So we start going out and doing some interviews. And they're basic interviews, just like what did you do? How did you donate? Oh, well, I gave 20, whatever the limit was at the time, $2,000. And then my boss gave me a bonus the next week. So we start seeing this straw donorship piece. And then that leads to looking at more things. And then we come up with an import-export company from Bergen County, New Jersey, Asian-American guy, Korean, who was utilizing every possible loophole in order to bring his products into the country. Who's his best buddy? Robert Torricelli, the sitting U.S. senator. Torricelli had him convinced that he had connections, are you ready, in the North Korean government that would allow this guy to do business, grain business, in North Korea. Now, this is a smart dude. This is a smart man. So when we finally got to him and developed him as a source, and there's tons of funny stories about this guy, but we finally developed him as a source, he's like, he didn't have those connections. We're like, David, you should know. You're a South Korean, countryman. Yeah, I thought it was kind of strange, but he kept asking me for cash and Mercedes-Benz and custom-made suits. So I just kept getting it. And he did write a letter for me. Yeah, well, of course he fucking wrote a letter for you. But so this guy's sitting in the Senate doing this stuff. In addition to that, there's so many crazy stories based on that. There was a sanitation guy, right? We know this is Jersey, right? Yeah. Sanitation guy. So Chang one day calls us. Guy's named Dave Chang. He passed in jail, sadly. He calls and he says, hey, I was just in the 7-Eleven up in Fort Lee, and I'm stirring my coffee, and he had the best memory. So he's like, I'm putting French vanilla creamer and I'm stirring it. In comes Bob Torricelli in a New York Jets varsity jacket. So all right, David, look, you're going to be a witness for us at some point. Yeah. You can't be making these stories up. Pull the tape, he goes. Then he goes, I'm not done yet. This guy, Jimmy Demetrakis, who owned a big sanitation company, mobster, pulls up behind him. He's threatening to throw me into a wood chipper and then throw me. So we're like, all right. So my boss goes, would you mind just taking a minute and taking a ride up to the 7-Eleven, see if they have the tapes? So my partner and I, Gary, we're like, I can't believe we got to fucking waste time. We go up there. Guy says, yeah, I have the tape. Put it in. Exactly what said happened. So then it starts to become more of a press. We search. This is unprecedented. We search. Mary Jo White was the U.S. attorney in New York, Southern District. We search Torricelli's house. We have his attorney, Ted Wells, follow us. It's unheard of. I let him walk with the attachment to the search warrant so he could see exactly what we were looking for. Ted Wells is walking step to step. There's the TV. Oh, my God. The TV's got a scratched off serial number. Exactly. Oh, there's the 2 Mercedes-Benz. Oh, wait a minute. There's the suits, the custom-made suits, all lined up in order. He goes, this is corroboration, guys. We're in trouble. Get the date of that search warrant? It's the Thursday before 9/11.
Oh, wow.
9/11 hits. God rest all those souls and everything that happened there that day. And Mary Jo White calls us on the Thursday after when we were going to indict a sitting U.S. senator. And she said, guys, how can I possibly indict a sitting United States senator when those buildings are burning right down the street from the courthouse? And it went away. The case went away.
Like, that was entirely?
It. Entirely.
Got wiped?
Wiped.
How can you not?
How can you not?
I mean, to me, like, that's...
How can you not?
Like, even more, those burning buildings, you need to fucking...
This guy was selling this country in his role. So my claim to fame is I'm probably the only FBI agent to ever get the finger and a fuck you from a sitting United States senator. I was passing him in a hallway, and he was like, fuck you, you missed. Right? So
is that like a... I mean, it wouldn't be double jeopardy, but if they made it go away, can they not ever
But by that time, the gig was up. You know what I mean? Like everybody knew we were looking at them, and we had pen registers, we had shit going on. We getting ready to go on on a wiretap. Which, by the way, everybody thinks is another thing. Everybody thinks wiretap's so easy to get. Bullshit. It's the hardest thing in the world to get. But when you get it, it's gold. Yeah. If you get it and use it properly, and you tickle the wire and do all those investigative tactics that make sense, that we still do in our business these days. We're on the verge. We go right to the line with what Andy and I do and our boys, but we're up to the line. But we can do that kind of stuff, which is helpful, right? So when I look at that case, it just takes away, when people know that, it takes away their confidence in the FBI back then. And right before, this was happening right before 9/11. Yeah. Right? So think about that failure. Yeah. Think about what happened there, the lack of communication behind each side. So corruption for me took a back seat for a minute. It came back with some really cool, interesting cases, but the buildings get hit. I'm there on the day of. So I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't.
So
before you get into that.
Yeah, man.
Just so with Torricelli.
Yes.
So nothing ever happened to him.
The only thing that happened, the Senate spanked him, right? So they came in and said, hey, look, we're going to, some ethical violations, some moral ethical violations on his elect forms, on his election campaign contribution forms. Yeah. Saying, well, there were straw donors, there was different things going around. The dude was taking cash hand over fist. I mean, our guy, the source paid him $150K a pop for like a series of 2 or 3 payments. He got $500,000 cash, corroborated by his girlfriends. He had about 4 or 5 girlfriends, including Mick Jagger's ex-wife, Bianca Jagger, which was a great interview, by the way, because I asked her if I said, I'm going to interview you and I'm not going to be your beast of burden, which it was a bet, and I got off and she loved it, so it was good.
That's fucking great.
But yeah.
Are those bribes typically wires from straw donors, or like it's multiple layers of not being able to connect dots? But is it usually wiring money into another account, or?
I mean, the campaign is always a popular kind of way and method to do that. What you'll find amongst most of the U.S. attorneys is, unless it goes in somebody's pocket, unless that guy takes that money, that campaign money, and puts it in his pocket or uses it for Mayor Eric Adams, right? That's kind of the classic example, the New York City mayor that just was indicted. Yeah. Then they're less likely to charge it.
So what is the way that they're like, what if you can go like A to B from wherever the money is originating from, and whoever the beneficiary is, if it's a senator, whoever's being bribed, what does that money flow look like for them to get away with it?
Usually it's one of two things. It's either straight up cash, right, for a particular official action, or it's something, right? So that conversation looks something like the politicians that are good at it, the Pelosi's and the Adam Schiff and those guys that are still good at it, the Jerry Nadlers, right? It's a conversation like, damn, I got college bills coming up this month, That's how they do it. And then all of a sudden the college is paid through some nonprofit or through some PAC or something along those lines. That's mostly. But there are, on the local politics side, there are a lot of cash bribes.
Yeah, it's actual hard
cash. Just, I need 5 more houses on that plot, and the planning and zoning board is not coming through for me, Mayor, and you're the voting member. What do you need? Well, I need $15,000 per plot. What do you want? Okay. And it shows up cash, or it shows up with a car or a vacation or a cruise, any of those things.
But I guess from like a forensic accounting standpoint, if somebody wants to not do it in cash and it's going to come as a bank wire, how are they able to hide that?
Yeah, and it's for us, it's our partners with the IRS, their criminal investigative division are amazing, right? So that's their job, is to do that source and application investigation, and it goes for instance, we had a mayor who had a state job in New Jersey. He was making about $110,000 a year, yet his expenditures were 4x that with no bills.
Yeah.
So, he left himself open. As we started to look at things, we started to realize how that money was being filtered in, whether it was just straight up cash, or the fact that how can you have 4x the expenditures and not have any credit card bills? Where did it come from? There's no money. We know what he started with on this day, right? So now you've got a cash situation. People are actually either taking time over beating the CTR rules, beating the banking industry's rules, taking out $9,000 instead of the $10,000 that triggers that CTR, that cash transaction report, and paying him over the course. And it's the long game. They play the long game. So, hey, I can't get this to you all in the next 6 months, but within a year you'll have $75,000 cash, or you'll have a new Lincoln Navigator, or you'll have X, whatever. So
when it's vehicles, because that seems like a fairly common thing, how are they getting around registration and titling and licenses and all that shit?
It's amazing, and it's all thought out. So you have somebody who's the fake recipient of that vehicle that'll go out way outside. For instance, Torricelli, he's living in Bergen County, New Jersey, which is very close to New York City. They went to Binghamton, New York, upstate New York, and made the purchases from a Mercedes dealership there for his girlfriends. So you had Judy Balaban get one, you had Bianca Jagger get one, and then of course where they parked in his driveway, right? So he still had well, that's my girlfriend's Mercedes Benz. No, it's not. Yeah, bullshit. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're driving it every day. So it's creative. It's very creative, and for the most part, you get tired of corruption investigators, because they're such long-term cases. You can get tired of that work quickly. Especially because. Most of your U.S. attorneys, most of their offices, and it's a special prosecution unit that does the corruption cases, are very, very selective about cases they take, or the standards and the thresholds that they need from you as an agent in order to prosecute that case.
Is there a higher standard of proof, a burden of proof on your guys' end if it's a senator, a mayor, as opposed to me?
We always felt that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that's written. What's supposedly you break a law, I break a law. It should be the same as John Kerry, for instance, but it's not. Yeah. And a lot of that is there's special permissions that need to be taken. If I want to subpoena your bank account today, nobody's going to argue with me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be able. Let me subpoena it. Let me take a look at it. If I go to subpoena Hillary Clinton's or the Clinton Foundation, that's going to be tied up in court for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Right, so you just get frustrated. Like there has been active subpoenas from 6 different FBI field offices on the Clinton Foundation's bank records for as long as I've been.
Because they have a fleet of attorneys that fight it, it just gets tied up.
Fight it every day.
And then guys like you, 10 years later, like fuck it, I'll just move on to the next.
Yeah,
one.
I'm going to do the next case, or monitoring it, but not necessarily expecting it
Yeah.
to come through.
Well, so that answers my biggest question in hearing this is that, Pelosi's and it's on both sides,
On both sides. Yep.
But why aren't there more prosecutions or at least heavier looks into these people? And that's why is because
that's
the
a big
second
reason.
you do it just gets fucking railroaded.
And your U.S. attorney has aspirations for the next job. Think about Chris Christie.
Yeah.
Right. So Jersey U.S. attorney, District of New Jersey, became the governor. And then we saw him on the stage, right, trying to become president. We saw him wandering around Trump looking for a job.
Yeah.
So Christie, that was never unspoken. Plus, I ran the corruption unit when Christie was the U.S. attorney in New Jersey. And I can remember having conversations with him about numbers. It wasn't necessarily about the fact patterns. What can we win? Versus, let's take them all.
Yeah.
Let's take them all. If we go 500, we still put a bunch of people where they belong, and the other ones had better attorneys. And there are those cases. So he was big on, I don't want to have a loss because I'm looking to become the governor and ultimately further down the line something more. So that when people say the FBI is weaponized, it's not. And I hate to say this, but who is really driving that train are those that are prosecuting those cases because their aspirations are either to go out and become, take back over their defense firm or to become greater, in power.
Yeah.
So they can't afford to have it put on them. So what's easier than a guy who's making GS 13 money, put it on that guy and say, oh, he was looking to F that guy up. I can tell you, rank and file, the things we've done and seen, we're just looking to pass the evidence along and seal the case tight. And what happens, happens. Jury world is a weird place.
Do you find for guys in that position, yourself included, that like with a prosecution attorney, that there is some ego tied into, if I build this case, I want to see it, that the guy actually gets convicted? Is there some of that of you want it to go, or is it legitimately like blindfolded fucking, looking at the scales where, hey, I'm just putting the package together and I don't, whether it gets prosecuted or not, I really don't give a fuck? Because to me, it seems like it should be that way.
Yeah.
But I can easily see how you put 2 years of time and effort into something, you'd like to know it was for something and not just like, and it ended up not happening.
I can tell you that the people I worked for, I've never seen that kind of, they're passionate, but being overzealous and trying to pass something along that's not accurate. Yeah. I hadn't seen that. Now we've read about that it has happened, right? And it's happened a lot more recently in the last 5 years. But from my standpoint, it was, and even the failures across the board, of Ray up there on Capitol Hill, sitting next to the Secret Service in a room, talking about the things that they did wrong. By the way, you and I both know how important advanced party is. That's the name of the game, and nobody did it, right? And they should just take a hit and move on. But from my standpoint, the prosecutors, you always wanted a career prosecutor. I always sought the career prosecutor. When I would go over to whatever U.S. Attorney's office I was dealing with in that portion of my career, I would go and say, who's been here the longest? Because I know they're not looking to move on to law firm B where they're going to make, 10, 12x their salary. So I wanted that person, one, because they were passionate about it, two, because they were really competent and they understood the prongs of that particular case. Corruption is difficult charges. All of your statutes are difficult. They require a bunch of different things, mostly being official action in return for something for you.
Yeah.
Not for something for an organization, not for something for, somebody else. It's for you. Did I benefit directly in return from my official action?
Yeah.
Quid pro quo, as clear as it could be there.
Yeah. So to me, in hearing you explain kind of how it all shakes out in reality, is that most of the prosecuting attorneys or district attorneys or federal judges or whoever is deciding, yes, we're going to move forward with this or not, many of them have higher aspirations. So they're thinking, do I really want to turn this table over and piss this guy off if I may, he may be able to keep me in or out of a job that I want next or whatever. So
100%.
So how do you fix that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question and it's a hard fix, right? And I think because of the comfort level of those working together, even across the aisle. So you'll have your defense attorneys who are widely known and are future employers for a lot of these people, right? So if I impress you and you've got a huge defense firm, guess where I'm coming next? And I'm a white collar attorney, or I'm a cyber attorney in this day and age, or I've worked some of the bigger corruption cases. I know I want to do my best because I want to do the right thing for the people, but at the same time, I also don't want to I want to make sure you still like me at the end of the day. The guy that's like, to me, the guy that is the most professional on both sides is a guy named Jim Nobile, who was our special prosecution guy for 30 years, never turned down judgeships, turned down huge jobs, stayed the course and retired. And he watches his New York Mets and his New York Jets, and he runs every day and he does his thing, right? And he's a brilliant mind. The other guy is Michael Critchley, who if I ever got jammed up, the first phone call, and I can't afford to even have the phone call with him, but I think he would take the phone call at least, right, Michael? Michael Critchley was passionate about every client that he had, to the point where and he's in his late 70s now. He started as a roofer. Guy roofed houses and then went to law school at night, and brilliant mind. He was so good, and he's crossed me hundreds of times, and I'm terrified every time. Even I have a conversation on the beach with him now, I'm terrified. I tell him, I don't even want to talk to you. But I would sit, and after working a case for a year, right? And what I'm getting to is there are those passionate people, but the ones in the middle that are looking to achieve, you can't fix that. Yeah. You can't fix it because the system is broken on that front, right? You get the right attorney, you're going to get off. Critchley would put on his opening argument, usually be 2 or 3 hours, after I had worked the case for a year and knew everything. And I would sit there and go, holy shit, maybe the guy didn't do it. That was me. Yeah. Think about what the jury's thinking. Right. So, and he would classically, I saw him get this was a former NBA player who became a councilman in Jersey City, New Jersey, right? I saw him get that guy off by proving that the way our source put the money in the guy's front seat didn't really mean that he wanted to pay him. Because look how he did it. He showed the video 500 times to the jury. Look it. He flipped it behind his back. That proves that he didn't want to pay him. It was a joke. Acquitted. I'm sitting going, the guy spent the $10,000 he fucking gave him and then made a phone call for that $10,000. That's just a crazy case. But my point is, I don't know if it's until it becomes less of a quid pro quo for those prosecutors that are looking to the future job. It's an old boys network, and I don't mean that. The women are in there too, but
I mean, to me, I think anybody listening here would hear that and maybe think, well, fuck, that sucks, but that's a small part. But to me, that's the one thing that as long as that's possible, your entire 3 branches of government, frankly, I mean, the legislative branch in particular, but that has, its prongs in everything to a degree with which, if you have that problem where you can't fix corruption and bribery and rubbing of the elbows and quid pro quo, the entire government can't ever unfuck itself.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. There's deal breakers across the board on that.
Yeah, I mean, that one single thing is keeping the government from doing what it's actually supposed to do.
100%. And the few career folks that are in there are few and far between.
Yeah.
Right? And then the Bureau, and I'm sure all the other agencies across the board that utilize the U.S. Attorney's Office in order to prosecute their misdoings, the leadership there is broken.
Yeah.
And it's the same pattern. So, for instance, and the military's like that too, in a lot of extents. Like people I'm gonna take credit for what you fucking did and get promoted, and you're not, right? Yeah. So, same thing, right? So we do this thing where there's not even just recently they've added an interview to this process. But if I was going to the next level, let's say when I was going for assistant special agent in charge, right? I would write up these KSIs, and basically I would just put it had to be like a certain number of characters. Could be more than 500 characters. And I had to say what I did. Here's the problem. Here's what I did. Here's what happened. I would look at these things and say, wait a minute, that was Joe Smith's. That wasn't his. And when I would bring that up, he was part of it. He was part of it. So now these guys are getting promoted up the ranks, and really never having accomplished their own investigation, never learning the job.
Yeah.
Never learning the job, but yet getting promoted. So now when I get to Andy McCabe and I'm making a decision about a FISA order, I don't even know what the fuck a FISA order is, but I'm making the decision.
Yeah.
Like broken, right? Yeah. So across the board, you look across the aisle at the prosecutorial arm, same thing.
Like they're in way over their head.
Way over their head.
Yeah.
But they're the guy now. They're the person of the hour.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at federal judgeship or they're looking at something else. So they're on stage and they got to make it happen. In the meantime, the street agent, the rank and file is going, I just spent 9 months of my life working 20 hours a day, making unbelievable recordings, developing sources, paying out sources, doing surveillance, doing counter surveillance, doing wiretaps, wiring up informants, interviewing, witnesses. And that guy just totally fucked it up.
Yeah. Is it a fair assumption to say that there's a significant percentage of federal judges who fall into that category?
I would say that there are judges that are selective about what they'll listen to and what they won't. And they've got the greatest power in the world, depending, and they're all they're all presidential appointees, right? Yeah. Now, there's cases that have been wrecked because judges have thrown out charges when they should not have. But you start to question whether or not the allegiance is to justice or is it to the president or the
political party or whatever. Yeah.
Period, right? Like, definitely, there's cases about that. But I think most federal judges are career prosecutors who chose not to go into practice, right? So they move up. And being a federal judge is not a bad life. Work 2 or 3 days a week, take the summer off, and you're maxed out at, whatever it is now, 350 or whatever, and they can come and go as they please. They do a great job, but they can control and they can affect a trial for sure. Yeah. And they can affect the plea. Like, listen, man, you're dead. Like, I would take a plea here, but maybe they shouldn't be recommending that. Yeah. Maybe they should be allowing the system and the process to go for a jury or through a jury or at least through a proffer process where we're hearing what you have to offer. We have a client right now down in Jacksonville, Florida, that just got totally fucked by the system. Totally fucked. Nobody wants to listen to what he has to say. So we've taken him on, and I'm looking at the things that he provides. If I had that as an agent, I would go through Florida and put a lot of politicians in jail. This guy, but nobody wants to hear what he has to say.
Can you expand on that at all, or is it kind of a client?
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one because it's in the process. But, we can go through. What's important is getting that information in the right set of hands. And I think what I can do differently is I still have enough reach back in the organization. And you know how it is. Like, you look back at the SEAL community, you look back at what I do, right? If you have the reach back and you at least have a relationship that's been built, be a fountain, not a drain. Yeah. We know too many drains, man, right? So if I can go back and say, look, would you just take a look at this? I'm not asking for any favors. I don't want any favors. Am I crazy? Am I looking at this wrong? And 100 out of 100, the guys I know that understand the process are going to be like, dude, you're spot on in this. And here's the approach that I would take. Yeah. Go here, go here, go here.
Yeah. In a scenario where, the senator case gets dismissed or something similar where you have like just a mountain of evidence of corruption and a judge or a DA or whatever says, just fucking get rid of it. Is there any recourse for you at that point, or is that's it?
You can go, there is recourse within Department of Justice, right? So as opposed to being at that U.S. Attorney's Office, you can go to, we have units down in Washington, D.C. that are supposed to take another independent look. And they do. Some of them are really good about it, or they'll put together like a task force, right? To say, well, it really is a problem. Like campaign finance is a problem. Let's take it out of the locals' hands and put it down to somebody else. That's the only recourse, but that's not a guarantee. Right. Because you still have those people that are aspiring there too, right? Or moving through quickly. Yeah. So what I always did is just look, is there any other angle on this case that I missed because maybe we stopped, maybe we stopped investigating because we got to the point where we were entering into plea discussions with someone before they went to trial. And you know what? Do we really need to look at that? It doesn't do it. It's really not making a difference, at this point. But so you can go back to that, which is different, which sometimes not even the federal prosecutors would know because you didn't feel it was important for this particular set of charges.
Yeah.
So that's the recourse. And there are agents out there, and I can name a dozen of them that are out there that are just, and you talked about friends that that are just, they're hound dogs, but they're hound dogs with morals and ethics, right? With the ability to stay right at the line. And I'm not saying, you can go to the line. The line is fine, just don't go over it, right? And there are guys and girls that do that and do it well.
Yeah.